Thank you all for joining us here at I-80 Sports, where today it is finally the NHL offseason, and it has been a busy week in the NHL offseason right now. We've got to get caught up on that and everything we missed during the playoffs. So strap yourself in, grab yourself a snack, grab yourself a drink, and tune in with us as we recap all of that right now. Guys, thank you all for joining us here again at I-80 Sports. Thank you all for joining us here again at I-80 Sports. Make sure that you subscribe down below, youtube.com/I-80 Sports, and let us know in the comment section below what you guys think so far of the NHL offseason. What trades have you seen that you really love? What are ones that are making you scratch your head? Let us know. Join the conversation below, youtube.com/I-80 Sports. While you're there, drop a like. Also, subscribe and hit the bell notification so that way you guys know when we go live. And if you guys are on Twitter, make sure you follow us down below at I-80_Sports NHL. And if you guys follow us already, thank you guys so much because we greatly value all of your support. But here we are. Away we go. I'm Brian. He's Tom. Tom, how are you doing today?
Doing well. And here we are. We are in the offseason. And let me just, before I'm going to beat you to the punch here. After I'm 35 years old, been into hockey since I was 8. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. That was the saddest sack of dog crap Stanley Cup finals I have ever watched in my life. Game 5, I effing fell asleep in the third period. It was garbage. The whole series was garbage. It was terrible. Worst finals I ever watched.
And that will be Tom's hill to die on for sure. Okay, so I'll play the diplomat here, and I will say congrats, Vegas Golden Knights, on your riveting Stanley Cup victory. And notice how I'm being very sarcastic when I say riveting. What was more riveting was the holy crap, that celebration, that Stanley Cup. See, the funny thing is the Stanley Cup final might have been like a 0 out of 10 on the Richter scale. The celebration in Vegas for the Stanley Cup win, though, was a 10 out of 10, though. Oh, my God. Like, I will gladly rewatch William Karlsson having the time of his life at the Stanley Cup celebration for years to come. He might top Nikita Kucherov post Stanley Cup, honestly. Wow. And also for Florida Panthers, I mean, you guys hit the wall at the exact wrong time, but I should say this, get well soon, Matt Tkachuk and Aaron Ekblad, for your injuries, because holy moly, it is gruesome, to say the least.
And let me just say one more thing. This has got nothing to do with the team being in a non-traditional market winning, okay? Tampa Bay won 3 cups, and I loved all the 3 cups they won. And they worked their way to get there, and they were garbage for many, many years. And I love all the Tampa teams that won those cups were teams that I really enjoyed watching and teams that deserve to win. The league, the league gave Vegas this cup. Come on.
I think that's kind of tough to say.
Well, I mean, obviously now the pieces are starting to fall with them. So let's see where Vegas is 2 and 3 years from now when they actually have to build a team the proper way.
We'll see where it goes. I mean, the jury is still out on drafting. They do have a couple prospects that have come up through the system, but otherwise they've been the New York Yankees when it comes to prospects, trading off as many as they could get for bigger names. But yeah, who knows? Congrats, Vegas Golden Knights.
Here's the difference: when your Yankees started buying big names in the mid 2000s, they never won anything,
except in 2009. But that was it.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Yeah, except in 2009. But then after that, I mean, yeah. Congrats to Domingo Germán on a perfect game last night, though. That was kind of cool to see. But anyway, we're going off on a tangent here. We got to get focused again. It's time to finally catch up on all the news that we missed during the playoffs and also the news that has been going on this week, because it has been a doozy of a week in the NHL. It has been very, very busy. But things we're going to be covering today, we're going to be covering coaching changes, the plethora of trades that have gone down over the past number of weeks, and also talking about and reflecting on the NHL draft and previewing a little bit of free agency to come. A little bit lightly, though. We'll do a lot more with free agency next week, though. But first, let's start with coaching changes. Just flat out coaching changes first. Let's talk about who's got some new faces on their teams right now. So just running down the list here from NHL.com, Anaheim Ducks have fired Dallas Eakins in favor of Greg Cronin. The Washington Capitals have mutually parted ways with Peter Laviolette and have hired Spencer Carberry as their replacement. The Columbus Blue Jackets have fired Brad Larson in favor of hiring Mike Babcock. More on that in a little bit. The Calgary Flames have finally fired Daryl Sutter and have since hired Ryan Huska. I think just off the cuff, I think that's a really good move. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. And New York Rangers have fired Gerard Gallant in favor of hiring Peter Laviolette. I'm sure Tom has some opinions on that. And lastly, the Nashville Predators, big shock here, firing John Hines finally and hiring Andrew Brunette. So dipping down the proverbial New Jersey rabbit hole again. So a lot to react to here. So Tom, immediate reactions here. What were some good hirings here? What are you scratching your head to as to why certain coaches might have been fired, and just like coaching changes in general? What has you scratching your head?
Well, before I scratch my head, let me get the obvious out of the way first in terms of Peter Laviolette here. I liked Gallant. I really did. You guys remember a couple of years back, I was very happy when the Rangers hired him. And it's at the same time, he was given a championship roster this year, and that roster was built to at least get to the Eastern Conference. Maybe not win the Stanley Cup like a lot of others thought, but that team was built to at least get to the Eastern Conference Finals or the Stanley Cup Finals, and they couldn't get out of the first round. Now, while I'm not putting the blame squarely on Gallant's shoulders for it, Gallant needed to do something with Game 3 or during Game, not after Game 3, during Game 3. The mandated day off, there was a day off the following day, it was mandated. There's nothing that could have been done about that. The fact of the matter is this, the Rangers played perfect hockey, anti-devil hockey in the first two games, taking away the space in all three zones. I went into this in other episodes. I'm not gonna go through the whole thing. You guys understand my drift here. Well, I'm not saying Gallant needed to crack the whip. I'm not saying Gallant needed to change his lines. He needed to say something in Game 3. Just simple as, guys, we're getting away from the style that won us the first two games. Let's get back to the way we're playing. He did nothing. He didn't do anything. And that Game 3, not Game 7, that Game 3 is why the Rangers lost that series. The Rangers would have won that game and played how they played in the first two. They would have walked out of that series potentially swept it or won it in 5 or 6. He didn't do anything. My other gripe with Gallant was this. Patrick Kane was brought into New York to play with Artemi Panarin. They were together the first couple of games. He split them up. They should have been given more time together, especially right before and during the playoffs. They really should have been given a lot more time to figure it out, Kane and Panarin, and they didn't. That was another one. I really think that he should have forced the issue with Kane and Panarin, and maybe even split up the kid line and put Philip Hedlund as their center instead of potentially Vincent Trocheck. My other gripe with Gallant. But you know what? I did like him. He came in and did what he needed to do. 2 100-point seasons, 2 playoff seasons for the Rangers. It was good. It just, I think at the end of the day, it didn't work. There were rumors about an argument with Chris Drury after Game 4. Maybe one day we'll find out what really happened there. As far as Laviolette's concerned, it's kind of the same blueprint as Gallant. Difference with Laviolette is he's a player's coach like Gallant, yes, but he's a little more, I'm not going to say like Quinn was a micromanager, but he gets to know his players a little more, whereas Gallant was like, go out there and figure it out. He knows his players a little bit better. He knows what can make them better, what can make them worse, strengths and weaknesses, and how they should play together. Laviolette also, everywhere he's gone, has at least gone to the finals, sans Washington. The difference with Washington was this. Washington had already won a cup, and they were trying to win another one. Everywhere else Laviolette went, those teams were trying to take that proverbial next step, kind of like the Rangers were with Gallant, but they were trying to take that proverbial next step and get themselves to the finals, whether it was Philly, who got there, lost to the Blackhawks. Carolina, he won. Nashville, got there, lost to the Penguins. Rangers, same situation. They're trying to take that next step in the playoffs. And I think he could be the guy. I really think he could be the guy. I don't think this is a Washington Capitals situation. This is maybe more of a Flyers situation. This team is more similar to, say, those early 2010s Flyers teams where they have the young guns. They have the veterans. They're a playoff team. They can contend. And I think that this is a good fit for the Rangers, Laviolette. I do. While I'm not jumping for joy over it, he wasn't my first choice. I wanted Joel Quenneville, and if not Joel Quenneville, I wanted them to promote Chris Knobloch from the minors. I don't hate this. I'm not jumping for joy over it. I don't hate it. So that's my thoughts on that. Now I'm going to scratch my head a little bit. See, scratching my head. Mike Babcock. What in the words of Wayne from Letterkenny, what in the actual F is this?
I love the reference. I love it.
So you bring in some guy here, like Wayne would say, you hired an idiot coach the other day.
Yeah, the other day.
This is exactly it. What in the hell is Columbus doing here? What are they doing?
To be fair.
Like, okay, in Detroit, I get it. Detroit, he had veterans, guys who had been there, guys who had won before. He abused the crap out of young kids in Toronto, like Mitch Marner and the like. Yeah. He was hard on the young players. He embarrassed them thinking that it would do something. So now you're bringing him into one of the youngest teams in the league. I'm sorry, that doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry. It's a head scratcher. I don't understand this.
Yeah.
Now we're going to go back to where Laviolette used to coach, not Washington, but Nashville. Now, I believe it was you or somebody else had told me this, that the Devils were grooming Andrew Brunette to step in behind that bench once Lindy Ruff was done. And now Brunette.
I think that was the thought before Lindy had such a good season with New Jersey, that New Jersey kind of wanted to hitch their wagon to Lindy, and rightfully so. I mean, Lindy had a fantastic year this year. I actually had him as a first place ballot for the Jack Adams this year over Jim Montgomery.
Yeah, well, I mean, don't get me wrong. Montgomery did deserve that Jack Adams. I don't think Olmark deserved the Vezina, but I think Montgomery deserved the Adams. Anyways,
2 1/2 dozen of the other.
Anyways, I don't mean to go off track again, and I apologize. I do wonder if the Devils take a step back this year. You know, if maybe they come back to reality and the fingers start getting pointed at Lindy again. And I'm not saying this is going to happen, but let's just say hypothetically it does. Say they want to show Lindy the door. Well, your guy who you wanted to step in for him is not there anymore. So I'm curious to see how this pans out, especially because Barry Trotz, last time watching the draft, has said he wants Washington to be a run-and-gun team, an offensive fire wagon. And, well, Andrew Brunette is very good at coaching teams like that. We saw how Florida was, I guess we're going to say 2 seasons ago now, because 2022 and 2023 is over. So just curious to where Brunette's going to go with Nashville and how this may impact the Devils.
Yeah. I'll stick on the Nashville point real quick. John Hines' voice finally got old in the Nashville locker room. I mean, unfortunately, with any coach, the voice finally gets lost in the locker room after a while. It's just a natural course of life for a coach. It's cyclical, and it happens. And it's not saying that John Hines is a bad coach. It just meant that he needed to move on to new endeavors. I actually thought that there was a real possibility he was going to actually end up being the Rangers head coach before they went and hired Peter Laviolette. Yeah. Thank God that didn't happen for Rangers fans, because I think there would have been
Did not want him.
Yeah.
He was the lowest of lows. I would have taken Mike Keenan back before him. I would have taken John Tortorella back before him.
Yeah. Hines is going to find another head coaching job in the NHL, though. Mark my words on that one. His time isn't done in the NHL. I definitely think he's going to find another head coaching job, because he did a perfectly fine job with Nashville. Nashville's in this weird transitionary phase, I feel like, where they don't need a rebuild, but they need to at least retool a little bit. And they need to kind of change the scenery within that locker room a little bit. And having Barry Trotz at the helm of the general manager's chair, I think, is really going to help and kind of freshen things up. No knock on Dave Boyle. Congratulations on his retirement, and well-deserved. Stand-up general manager as well. And best of luck to him in retirement. the hiring of Andrew Brunette as head coach for the Nashville Predators, I think, is a really, really good choice. And that's not even thinking bias in terms of him being the assistant coach in the New Jersey Devils this past year. But look at what he did with the Florida Panthers in an emergency situation 2 years ago, taking them to become President's Trophy winners. Sure, they didn't make it that far in the playoffs, but it is a real, feather in the cap of Andrew Brunette to continue to rally that troop almost from, a major catastrophe from taking over from Joel Quenneville. So I think Brunette is going to do a very good job in Nashville. I think, Nashville got their guy. And I think Nashville got one of the best head coaches available this year behind the bench now. So now it's put up or shut up for Andrew Brunette in Nashville to really do something with that. It's put up or shut up for Barry Trotz to really kind of reshape this team and really start thinking about where this team can go. There's talks that Barry Trotz has placed goaltending prospect Yaroslav Askarov on the trading block. So he's a really interesting name that could fetch something really, really nice in return if Barry Trotz wheels the right deal for that. But Nashville's already on the right track to really retool this team in due time. They have a plethora of draft picks and a plethora of prospects to work with as well. So it's going to be really interesting to see where Nashville goes. The other team that I really liked their move from was Calgary. Daryl Sutter needed to go. He was a dinosaur in that locker room and really set that team back to the point where you saw the Tyler Toffoli trade go down a few days ago. More on that in a little bit. There's talks that Elias Lindholm might want out of town as well. That's a major concern for Calgary fans who just last year picked up Jonathan Huberdeau and Mackenzie Weegar, and re-signed them to long deals, and they're going to be a part of this core for a long time to come. So Calgary's in this weird space right now where they could either be a very good Pacific team or they could be a really bad Pacific team. I don't think the Tyler Toffoli trade is an indication of them rebuilding, though. I don't think that this is a start of a rebuild whatsoever. I think it's a start of a retool. And we'll go back to that in a little bit, but I do like Ryan Huska taking on the role of head coach for the Calgary Flames. I think it's going to breathe a breath of fresh air for those players there. And I could very well see a scenario where his coaching helps Calgary get back to the playoffs next year. I think that is a very strong possibility of having, and I think it could happen. There's a couple names that they could float out onto the trade market after free agency opens up. That's just going to have to see what happens with Elias Lindholm, what happens with Noah Hannafin, and kind of go from there. But for right now, Ryan Huska taking over for Daryl Sutter for the Calgary Flames, I think is a great move. All right, I'll say it. I don't understand Mike Babcock coming back to the NHL, and I think it's, you know what? I'm going to shoot off the cuff here. I think it shows exactly, over the past 2 weeks, what has been wrong with the NHL. They did away with, the NHL warm-up jerseys because you had a lot of people clamor about the pride jerseys and this and that. So Gary Bettman said, okay, no more warm-up jerseys, period. No more pride jerseys, no more military, no more cancer, jerseys, no any of that. All because you had this sickening group of people that, said not in my NHL. And where I'm going with this with Mike Babcock is you had a guy with, horrific coaching tendencies, a bully, and some allegations throwing around that he also could have been kind of racist too, coming back into the league. It's just not a good look. I just don't think it's a good look for Columbus. I don't think, let's be real also. Mike Babcock is going to make the Columbus Blue Jackets competitive again. There is no doubt about that. We are going to see Columbus win some more games this year. I do think that happens. But at what cost? At what cost? I don't like this move. If you're a younger player for the Columbus Blue Jackets, I think you're a little bit worried. And I think you go in and err on the side of caution when you first walk into that locker room in September and Mike Babcock is standing right in front of you. I think you take a lot of what he coaches you with a grain of salt. That's just from me. If you want to sound off down below, but that's just my belief, and that's where I'm sitting on that one. And lastly, with the New York Rangers, I like this move. Peter Laviolette, I think, is cut from the same cloth as Gerard Gallant, and I think it's just, kind of keeping similar tendencies and similar expectations. Except I think Peter Laviolette is going to do a way better job of holding his players accountable, because I think Gerard Gallant didn't do as good a job down the stretch of holding some of his players more accountable for some of their actions on the ice and for their play on the ice as well. Peter Laviolette, I think, is going to do a significantly better job of that. And Tom, you can agree or disagree with me on that one, but I think he's honestly going to do a better job of holding players accountable than Gallant did. But yeah, those are the coaching changes. Sound off down below with what you guys think. Talking trades now in the NHL, we have had a busy past couple weeks with trades because holy moly. Okay, so I'm going to be splitting time here from my doc here to the trade tracker because there were some trades that went on today as well. So I'm going to go in chronological order and just start from most recent and go as far back from the last time that we covered trades. So I'll make this as quick as possible, and then we'll elaborate on the trades that we liked. So starting with today's trades on day 2 of the draft, the Chicago Blackhawks have acquired expiring contract Corey Perry from the Tampa Bay Lightning in exchange for a 7th-round pick in 2024. The Detroit Red Wings have acquired forwards Kailer Yamamoto and Klim Kostin from the Edmonton Oilers in exchange for future considerations. Heard he's actually a very good player, future considerations. He's actually gotten dealt a few times today. The Chicago Blackhawks added again, acquiring forward Josh Bailey, a 2nd-round pick in 2026 as well, from the New York Islanders in exchange for future considerations. Promptly after this trade, it was announced that the Blackhawks were going to buy out the remainder of Josh Bailey's contract. So Josh Bailey is another player that you can also project to go somewhere else. Obviously opens up, so Josh Bailey will be a free agent on July 1st. Yesterday, we saw the Pittsburgh Penguins acquire forward Riley Smith from the Vegas Golden Knights in exchange for a 3rd-round pick in 2024. Also yesterday, going down, the Colorado Avalanche acquiring Ross Colton from the Tampa Bay Lightning in exchange for a 2nd-round pick in 2023. Avalanche are going to be a little bit busy from what you're going to see in the next few trades here. Going back a few more days, the New Jersey Devils, with a splash of a trade, acquiring Tyler Toffoli from the Calgary Flames in exchange for forward Yegor Sharangovich and a 3rd-round pick in 2023. New Jersey also staying busy with San Jose Sharks acquiring goaltender Mackenzie Blackwood from the New Jersey Devils in exchange for a 6th-round pick in 2023. The Anaheim Ducks have acquired forward Andrew Agazzino from the San Jose Sharks in exchange for defenseman Andre Schuster. Probably the biggest trade of the past few days. The Los Angeles Kings have acquired forward Pierre-Luc Dubois from the Winnipeg Jets in exchange for forwards Gabriel Velarde, Rasmus Kupari, and Alex Iafallo, and a 2nd-round pick in 2024. And we'll also talk about contract extensions after this because there are a few contract extensions, but we'll talk about it after trades. Next, the Montreal Canadiens have acquired forward Alex Newhook from the Colorado Avalanche in exchange for defenseman Gianni Fairbrother and a 1st-round and 2nd-round pick in the 2023 NHL draft. The St. Louis Blues have acquired forward Kevin Hayes from the Philadelphia Flyers in exchange for a 6th-round pick in 2024. The Devils also making a minor deal here, acquiring Shane Bowers from the Boston Bruins in exchange for former defensive prospect Riley Walsh. The Chicago Blackhawks have acquired forwards Taylor Hall and Nick Foligno from the Boston Bruins in exchange for defensemen Alec Regula and Ian Mitchell. The Arizona Coyotes have acquired defenseman Sean Durzi from the Los Angeles Kings in exchange for a 2nd-round pick in 2024. The Colorado Avalanche have acquired Ryan Johansson from the Nashville Predators in exchange for forward Alex Galchenyuk. Yeah, I hope somebody wins bingo now on Alex Galchenyuk with how many teams he's played for at this point. So if you still have your Alex Galchenyuk bingo card, you may be a winner. Just check your card. The Colorado Avalanche have also acquired Frederick Olofsson from the Dallas Stars in exchange for future considerations. The Columbus Blue Jackets have acquired defenseman Damon Severson from the New Jersey Devils in exchange for a third-round pick in 2023. And lastly, finally, the Columbus Blue Jackets, starting off the offseason with a splash, have acquired defenseman Ivan Provorov from the Philadelphia Flyers in a 3-team trade that also includes the LA Kings. The Philadelphia Flyers have acquired goaltender Cal Peterson, defenseman Sean Walker Helggrans, and a first-round pick in 2023, a second-round pick in 2024, and a conditional second-round pick in 2024. The LA Kings have acquired defenseman Kevin Connaughton, forward Hayden Hodgson, and they have taken on 30% of Ivan Provorov's contract. That's a lot to digest there. A lot of trades that have gone down. A lot of teams staying busy here. Tom, off the cuff here, what are you thinking with some of these deals? What deals do you really like? What deals kind of left you, once again, scratching your head?
I mean, I like what Colorado did here. I think that they know, and I mean, everybody knows, the core they have, they can still win Stanley Cups. Just because they had a disappointing year this year doesn't mean they're done. And I said it last year, they're going to win one or two more, at least one or two more. Landeskog potentially never playing again. This helps that out a little bit by bringing in a guy like Ryan Johansson. Also helps fill that second line center hole that Nazem Kadri left after he went to get his money when they won the cup. I hate to say it, I like the Devils deal for Toffoli.
Yeah, you do.
At his best, he's a top 9 guy. At his worst, he's a mid-6 guy. He's got a skew of experience in the playoffs. He was there with LA. It's good for them. It's a guy they were going to potentially need come next spring. So I like that one a lot too. And well, the Blackhawks, you bring in Corey Perry, you bring in Nick Foligno, you bring in Taylor Hall. Is this going to bring back the glory days of 2010 to 2015? Absolutely not. It's a nice buffer for Bedard in year one. I like it, but I don't like it at the same time. As we've seen before with number 1 overalls, case in point, guys like Sidney Crosby and Steven Stamkos, when teams have tried to bring in too many veterans to take the spotlight off of them, it hasn't really worked. And I think that Corey Perry might have been a little bit of overkill for the Hawks. I think Hall and Flynn were fine. I think Perry's a little bit of overkill. And I only do it because I compare it with Pittsburgh. When Pittsburgh got Crosby, they already had Mario. Lemieux was still playing at the time. And they brought in John LeClaire, Mark Recchi, and Ziggy Palffy. Tampa Bay, when they got Stamkos, still had LeCavalier and San Luis. They also brought in guys like Chris Gratton. Who else am I forgetting? Chris Gratton. Well, I said the name 3 freaking times already.
For Colorado.
Gary Roberts, and even I think Simone Gagne. No, Gagne didn't bring in at the time. But still, you get my drift here. Those teams tried to load up with veterans to try to rush the rebuild, and it didn't work. And I think, well, I liked Hall and Foligno. I think Bedard was – not Bedard. Perry was a little too much for Chicago here. Just a tad bit too much. So I like the first – what's that?
There's no guarantee that Corey Perry re-signs with the Chicago Blackhawks. They just acquired the rights.
That's true, too. I know they definitely want Foligno. I know they definitely want Hall. I know Perry, it's still up in the air what they want to do.
Yeah.
And, well, let's go down to that team down in Philly, the Flyers. First of all, I said years ago when they signed Hayes that there's an overpayment for this guy, and now you have to retain 50% of his salary, and you get a 6th-round draft pick in return. But at the same time, look at Kevin Hayes and look at John Tortorella. Hayes was never known as a guy who would conform to the rules anywhere he was. He was known to go out in New York and drink when he was on the Rangers. The difference was Torts wasn't his coach. AV really didn't give a what his players did, as long as they were up to par. You also have Torts there. I'm sure Torts didn't like Hayes' behavior off the ice either. Is this Mike Richards and Jeff Carter part 2 with the Flyers? I mean, light sort of, because Hayes is nowhere near as good as those guys were. But wow, I said it. The Flyers overpaid for this guy, and now they're feeling. And now they're paying for it now. They're stuck with half of his salary. And the situation he's going to in St. Louis isn't going to be much of an improvement.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I actually do like what the Flyers have done so far. You made the best of a bad situation because the trade that they made with St. Louis was not the trade that they negotiated on, simply because, unfortunately, Torrey Krug for the St. Louis Blues, said, I don't want to leave. I don't want to go to Philadelphia. There was talks and chatter that the St. Louis Blues were trying to get a third team involved to take on Torrey Krug and take on half his contract. It was rumored that they contacted the Devils on that one. The Devils said, absolutely not. There was talks that they also tried to negotiate with Florida, and Florida said, absolutely not. So ultimately, Torrey Krug gets to stay in a place where he's not wanted, ultimately, with the St. Louis Blues. Because let's call a spade here. If St. Louis is trying to trade you, they don't want you. They also regret the deal that they made a few years ago for you, which at the time was a terrible move for the St. Louis Blues.
You gotta realize one thing about the Blues here too. The Blues up until this year were a playoff team. They won the Cup 3 years ago. They got to the second round of the playoffs last year. The Blues were teetering on being a playoff team or being a rebuilding team, and this year they finally went the other way.
Yeah, but even then it was an overpayment for Torrey Krug. Torrey Krug was a product of being a big fish in a small pond and being the best defenseman available for that year. I think any other year he doesn't make the money that he gets in that deal.
True, too, but there was also this kid named Charlie McAvoy in Boston who was pushing him out the door. The Bruins figured they might be a little bit better off with him.
And that rightfully so. Rightfully so. But I do like what Philadelphia has done thus far. You made the best of a bad situation by getting that contract out. I have to mention a meme here that I read on Twitter like days or weeks ago, where Daniel Briere has traded away like a chunk of his bad contracts. Meanwhile, Chuck Fletcher would have been sitting there. Trades are tough, guys. Like, trades are just difficult. Meanwhile, he was the guy that signed Kevin Hayes to begin with. But Danny Briere has done a really good job so far with the Philadelphia Flyers and trying to make the best trades possible for their team. They retooled nicely from Ivan Provorov. They got a couple really nice pieces in that trade. Also trading away Kevin Hayes. Does it stink? Yeah, it does. But, he wasn't going to play for John Tortorella, and John Tortorella did not want to coach him. So make the best of a bad situation there. We can anticipate the Flyers are certainly not done. They're probably going to take free agency to kind of assess and see where other teams have needs after free agency opens up on the 1st. And then we might see a couple more trades happen with the Philadelphia Flyers. A couple names to keep an eye on are Travis Sanheim and Carter Hart for the Philadelphia Flyers. I think those are two players that I think I could conceivably see being traded. I don't see Scott Laughton being traded. I think he is a part of the future plans. I really like what Colorado has done thus far, acquiring Ross Colton, Ryan Johansson for almost nothing. They really got Ryan Johansson for like almost nothing when you really think about it. That was a really, really nice trade. And Ryan Johansson almost effectively replaces Nazem Kadri, who they were very sorely missing last year. They were missing depth down the middle, big time. I scratched my head a little bit and kind of thought long and hard on this one of like, why would they trade Alex Newhook? It doesn't make sense to me. He was only playing 10 minutes a night, and he was so blocked up by the rest of those players in Colorado. He was never going to see more than 12 to 15 minutes a night. At least going to Montreal is going to use him in that top 6. He's going to play maybe 15 to 18 minutes a night now. Now we can really kind of see, was Alex Newhook actually worth keeping around? We weren't going to realize that with him staying in Colorado, and extending him to a long contract would have done him no favors as well in Colorado. Colorado got some nice pieces in return there, picking up Fairbrother and those two high draft picks that they used yesterday and today in today's draft. I do like what the Devils did with Tyler Toffoli. I know a lot of Flames fans are just like, that's it. That's all we got. We got, some dude named Sharangovich or Sharon, just something Sharon's mother, and, a 3rd round pick. But like in reality, Yegor Sharangovich is a year removed from 24 goals. Sharangovich, I think, can be a guy that nets you anywhere between 20 to 30 goals per year. and he's young, and he's now under contract for the next 3 years for them. So it was a little bit of an overpay as well. Calgary overpaid him just a little bit, but great move by Calgary because they get a little bit younger. They retool a little bit. They don't rebuild. They retool here. And for the Devils, I mean, look at that top 9 now. That top 9 is absolutely filthy and scary now. Tyler Toffoli addresses a major need for the Devils. He's a right-handed shot, which on the power play, the only right-handed shot that they had sitting in Ovechkin's kitchen last year was Dawson Mercer. And we saw how well he did on the power play last year because of that. Tyler Toffoli, I think, can be more effective this year in that position as well on power play 1 or power play 2. So I'll definitely pick up the power play minutes. He's definitely going to be playing on lines 2 or 3 as well. And I mean, if you project it out, if you look at that second line of a possibility of Timo Meier, Jack Hughes, and Tyler Toffoli, the 3 of them combined last year scored 117 goals. So this could be a really, really, really nice situation for the Devils, and the Devils could be building something very nice here in New Jersey. We could have a very special team on our hands here with the New Jersey Devils, and either as early as this year or maybe next year or the year after. The trade that has me scratching my head a little bit is Pierre-Luc Dubois. I think the LA Kings gave up too much for Pierre-Luc Dubois and then subsequently gave him too much money and too many years, I think. Dubois is a very talented player, but I don't think he was worth giving up Gabriel Velarde for. I get giving up Alex Iafallo in this trade because you need to move around a little bit of cap, and he was a contract that was taking up some space on your roster. But I don't know. I don't know if I like this trade for LA. I think it was a little bit too much. Do you think this was a little bit too much here, Tom?
Yeah. I mean, listen, the trade didn't bother me so much as maybe the extension he got. I'm going to delve into that in a little bit.
Yeah. Also, Chicago. I really like the Taylor Hall and Nick Foligno deal. They extended Nick Foligno as well, so he's going to be sticking around in Chicago this upcoming year. Taylor Hall, when healthy, I think is going to be a really, really nice piece for Connor Bedard to play around with. We saw how well it helped out for Nico Hischier and Jack Hughes when Taylor Hall was still around when they were drafted. And I think it's going to be the same effect here. I think Taylor Hall plays very, very well with a talented center playing with him. And Connor Bedard, as we have seen, is a very talented center. It's left to be seen what he's going to do at the NHL level, but I think pairing him with Taylor Hall, who is very similar speed with him, I think is a really, really nice touch. And I think Chicago is going to, I think Kyle Davidson is serious about, building this team correctly. And I think, Connor Bedard is just the perfect start with that team. Yeah, the other trades I can talk about. I also don't understand LA trading Sean Durzi. I don't. I know you got to move around cap, but and you got a second round pick, but Sean Durzi I thought was a part of your future plans. I don't know. That just seemed like I felt like a move just all right, you moved him just so that way you could get Pierre-Luc Dubois, make it make sense. Make it make sense to me. And it didn't quite make sense to me, but it is what it is. Columbus picking up Damon Severson is also a really nice move. Also picking up Ivan Provorov is nice too. You now have a really nice 1-2 punch in Ivan Provorov and Damon Severson, maybe as that top pairing defenseman going into next year. Damon Severson also getting that 8-year extension before going over to Columbus here. So really savvy trade here by the Devils also to pick up that 3rd round pick, which they promptly flipped to Calgary, which was also flipped from Calgary in the first place. So can we just admire the fact that Calgary traded for their own draft pick also? But yeah, pretty wild here. Any last things on trades here before we move on here, Tom?
No, I think I'm good on my end here. Just the ones I previously had mentioned. Yeah, that's really it. I mean, I understand what Edmonton was doing with the trade with Detroit. I think Edmonton is just clearing cap, whether it's for a number 1 defenseman, legit number 1 defenseman, or whether it's for a legit number 1 goaltender. But as we've seen with Edmonton, and as we've been saying for the last 2 years, you can't just win with McDavid and Draisaitl alone. You need more help.
Yeah, and 100% agreed there. Yeah, moving on. Going on to contract extensions here. We had a number of players sign contract extensions in the NHL. So let's talk about those real quick. So A couple going down yesterday, a couple big ones going down yesterday. Vegas Golden Knights have re-signed Ivan Barbashev for 5 years at $5 million per year. The New Jersey Devils have extended Timo Meier for 8 years at $8.8 million. It is reported that he also turned down last year a similar extension at 8 years, but at $9.5 million a year to stay in San Jose. So getting a pretty friendly discount here for the New Jersey Devils. Toronto has re-signed David Kampf on a 4-year, $2.4 million deal. As I mentioned before, Calgary has extended Yegor Sharangovich for 2 years at $3.1 million per year. Also, as I mentioned before, the LA Kings have extended Pierre-Luc Dubois for 8 years at $8.5 million per year. Evgeny Dadonov is going to stay put in Dallas for 2 years at $4.5 million. Nick Foligno also staying with the Chicago Blackhawks on a 1-year, $4 million deal there. Jordan Staal, the captain, staying in Carolina, 4 years, $2.9 million per year. Arizona locks up a goaltender, Connor Ingram, 3 years, $1.95 million per year. Really nice deal there by them. New Jersey Devils staying busy this offseason as well, as re-signed Eric Haula for 3 years at $3.15 million per year as well. So it's taking a discount there as well. Other contract extensions that I need to cover. Just kind of scrolling past the minutia here. Interestingly, Montreal has extended Sean Monahan for 1 year, $1.95 million per year as well. Semgus Girgensson is going to stay in Buffalo for 1 year, $2.5 million as well. Zach Jones getting a little friendly extension from the New York Rangers, 2 years at the league minimum, $800,000. New Jersey also, before re-signing Timo Meier, re-signed Jesper Bratt for 8 years, $7.85 million per year. Really nice signing there by the Devils. And as mentioned before, keeping the Devils in the loop on this one, but they signed the contract before trading his full rights. The Columbus Blue Jackets have extended Damon Severson 8 years, $6.25 million per year for him. And Andreas Athanasiou is going to be sticking around with Chicago for 2 years at $4.25 million per year. And lastly, the LA Kings extending Vladislav Gavrikov, who they picked up at the trade deadline, for 2 years, $5.875 million. Oh, he's not the last one. Because before that, the day before that, Cole Caulfield has signed his big boy contract with the Montreal Canadiens, 8 years, $7.85 million per year. So a lot to digest here. Tom, is there any particular contract extensions here that you really like, or any that you don't really like?
So I don't necessarily hate the money in the Jordan Staal deal, but I just don't like the term. It's till he's 38 years old. And will he play till he's 38 years old? I know the name Staal down in Carolina. It's like a household thing, whether it be Eric or Jordan. Eric was obviously there when they won the cup. Jordan's been there now leading the team in their glory years here. But I just don't like that term. I just think that at some point that deal is going to, or the spot he's taking is going to bite the Canes in the ass. I like the Foligno deal in Chicago. And maybe, just maybe, I don't know how they're going to do it this year. Maybe they don't want to name a captain after Jonathan Taves has been the captain for so long there, and it's been already confirmed he won't return. Maybe he's the captain this year. If not, maybe he wears a letter. Just he's a leader, Nick Foligno. And I do like it. Now, the Cole Caulfield deal, this screams the deal that the Devils gave to Jack Hughes. Remember, when they gave Hughes that deal, he wasn't that proven yet. He wasn't this bona fide superstar that he is now. Caulfield is in the same situation. We've seen flashes of Caulfield. His name coming up was Goal Caulfield, was his nickname. But now it's time to prove himself up in Montreal. He has the money. Now it's time to start scoring 30 or 40 goals here. I'm not saying he's got to score 60 or 70, but he's getting that money. He needs to put on average at least 30 to 35 a year. So now let's move on to the team that the Montreal Canadiens last won the Stanley Cup against, the LA Kings, in Pierre-Luc Dubois. Looked at his stats yesterday. On average, he's a 25-goal, 60-point player. They gave him $8.5 million for 8 years. Is that worth it? Now the Kings have been a playoff team. The Kings still have Kopitar and Doughty. but the Kings are not a Stanley Cup contender. And the Kings are similar to those aforementioned St. Louis Blues we talked about just a little while ago, where the other shoe is very close to dropping in LA, to where if the Kings have a bad go of it and they're out of the playoffs, they might be ready to blow it up. And by all means, blow it up. The glory, I mean, you're holding on to Kopitar and Doughty. They won you those 2 Stanley Cups in 3 years, now going on 10 years ago. I get it. They're holding on to them. Those are your probably the 2 best players in franchise history, even more so than Wayne Gretzky. Gretzky was sent to LA to sell the game, not to win a championship, guys. Let's be real. We can talk about that another day. But so if you say the shoe falls this year with LA, say the shoe falls next year with LA, best case scenario, maybe the year after, and they start tearing it down, and maybe they want to trade Kopitar or Doughty, or they both retire, and they want to tear the team down in LA. Well, here you are with an albatross contract of a guy who scores 25 goals, 60 points on average for $8.5 million a year, who no team in their right mind will take. I'm sorry. That's a terrible deal for LA. LA is in la-la land lately. I hate to say it. The Kings are a good team, but the Kings are punching above their weight. I think that the management in LA is still thinking it's 2012 or 2014, and then all they got to do is just get there and go on a little run and win the cup. I'm sorry. These LA Kings teams now are not the same LA Kings teams as 10 years ago. I'm sorry. This is not a team that's going to go on a run and win a Stanley Cup magically. It's just not the same team anymore. And eventually that team's going to have to get torn down, and this is going to be a big problem for them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what LA was thinking with that $8.5 million per year contract for Pierre-Luc Dubois. I don't like the deal. And subsequently, I also don't like the deal because I think the Devils would have gotten Timo Meier for $8.5 per year until Dubois signed his deal. And Claude Lemieux, his agent, Timo Meier's agent, probably went to the Devils and just said, look, it's not a good look if Timo's making like as much money as Dubois. So they probably had to sweeten the pot a little bit. But I don't know. It's not. I want to see it work out for LA. I do. Because Dubois, I think if he does fully pan out, I think, and really does hit his prime, I think he can be a very, very good player in the league, whether he's playing center or whether he's playing wing. But man, he needs to go here and prove it now. Like all the pressure is now on his shoulders in LA. He's going to be like the guy in LA, and now he's got to prove it, and it's on him. I'm going to be a homer here. I really like what the Devils did. Tom Fitzgerald should really be up for General Manager of the Year next year for how he did such a good job with these contracts. And it all started from the year prior with re-signing Jack Hughes and re-signing him at $8 million per year before his breakout. And he basically just let that be his dipstick and basically told every player, look, we need you guys to buy in. And nobody's making more than Jack. Nobody's making more than Dougie. Like nobody's making more than Jack Hughes. Nobody's making more than Dougie Hamilton. And look what they did. Jesper Bratt re-signs a long-term 8-year contract at $7.875 million per year. Timo Meier signs an 8-year contract as well, $8.8 million dollars a year. 2 guys that were pivotal to lock up. They locked them up. Eric Haula also took a friendly discount at $3.15 per year to stick around until age 35 as well. Really, really, really nice moves here. And what's even better here for the New Jersey Devils is looking at cap friendly, they have $10.2 million of cap room, even with these larger contracts. So they have a lot of flexibility here. You've got a couple players that are on RFA status right now, and you got a couple players that are going to test the UFA market. RFAs this year are Nathan Bastian, Jesper Brokqvist, and Michael McLeod. All 3 players are your 4th line right now. So I would expect 2 out of the 3 possibly to stick around. Tomas Tatar, Miles Wood, and Ryan Graves are all going to test free agency. I don't see any of them coming back unless free agency is really unkind to them. Then maybe they take a bridge deal. But even then, I don't know. Probably the only 2 people that I'm remotely interested in, tickling the idea of coming back are Tomas Tatar and Ryan Graves. And that kills me to say with Miles Wood because I am a Miles Wood apologist. Also, RFA status this year is Kevin Ball on the defensive side of things, but I know that contract's probably going to get done. But yeah, the Devils also might not be done. Free agency might open up and they might do one or two things as well to fill out the rest of this roster, which would be really, really interesting to see. I really like those. I love the Cole Caulfield extension as well. I thought that was a really, really smart move by the Montreal Canadiens. I think Chicago gave a little bit too much money to Andreas Athanasiou, but that is the market for him, so I understand. I don't hate the Jordan Staal signing, actually, because I understand what Carolina is trying to do here. They're trying to get him one more cup. That's all they're doing. They're trying to get him one more cup and for him to actually hoist it as a captain. And I can't begrudge that for the Carolina Hurricane. And it's such a friendly contract that I think even if he doesn't see the entire length of the contract, it's not going to be a detrimental amount that they're stuck with. So I still think it's okay. Nick Foligno signing with Chicago, I think, is a really nice touch as well. I think he will wear an A. I don't see anybody being named captain of the Chicago Blackhawks because maybe they're reserving that to assess what Connor Bedard is as a leader, and maybe that could possibly happen. But you know what? Stranger things have happened.
Not this year.
Not
maybe
this year.
Not
no.
even next.
No, meaning like they're gonna leave the captaincy open this year. They're gonna leave it open this year. That they're not assigning that to anybody. I also like Evgeny Dadonov staying in Dallas. I think that's a really nice deal as well. And I think he's very talented, and I think he's going to, bat that weight of his contract for sure. I think money-wise, I think Columbus overpaid a little bit for Damon Severson, but at peak, he is a top 4 defenseman. And I think Columbus is going to like this deal, and he's going to like they're going to like having Severson around. Gavrikov, I think, got overpaid a little bit, but hey, it's the LA Kings. They're overpaying everybody right now. So just kind of is how it is. Before we go away today, we do want to just reflect a little bit on the NHL draft and preview free agency that opens up on July 1st at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tom, were there any draft picks here that you were surprised by or any that you really liked?
Dmitry Simashev was a big surprise by Arizona. A lot of people didn't have him going that high. Kind of like Moritz Seider maybe 4 years ago when Detroit drafted him. Everybody was like, whoa, you're drafting that guy that high? Another surprise, and it wasn't a big surprise, was Anaheim taking Leo Carlsson over Adam Fantilli. I don't understand that one. It doesn't make sense. You have 2 centers available. Wouldn't you want to take Fantilli? He's a better player. His stats are better. I mean, unless they're just trying to fail-safe option and keep Carlsson in Sweden and use him as trade bait or have a little more time to develop him. I don't understand that one for the life of me. But
you gotta love it if you're a Columbus fan, though, for Adam Fantilli, because now think about it. You got the Michigan connection now in Columbus between Cole Sillinger, Kent Johnson, Adam Fantilli.
Yeah.
You've got some really
interesting... You got the Michigan connection in an Ohio State city.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. It's kind of ironic. But I think that's for chemistry purposes, I think that's a really important thing. And I think Adam Fantilli is really going to bring that Columbus roster together very, very nicely. So I think him dropping in the draft is a godsend for Columbus. Don't sleep on Leo Carlsson, though. That I will say.
Believe it or not, one other one I liked was what Colorado did. Well, there's 2 others. One other one is what Colorado did. Callum Ritchie. I really wanted the Rangers to take him. Let me just pull up his stats real quick. He's a 6'2", 187-pound center, point per game this year with the Oshawa Generals. This is a guy I wanted the Rangers to take. Now, listen, I have no issues with Gabe Perreault, but Gabe Perreault, and granted, Gabe Perreault broke Austin Matthews' record with the National Team Development Program. Guys, let's put it this way, and I'm not going to tell you guys something you don't already know. Gabe Perreault, at minimum, is going to spend 2 years at Boston College. And don't get me wrong, if he turns into that player, maybe not a superstar, but can come in and be a solid top 6 point getter, I'm fine with that. But he's going to be there at least 2 years. That's just the way it goes with NCAA guys. If they want to make the jump, if they can make the jump, it's usually 2 years at minimum in college. Now, while I'm not saying Callum Ritchie is going to be ready this year for the NHL, I think Ritchie might be ready next year. And Colorado getting rid of Newhook, could Ritchie, not this year, guys, he'll probably go back to Oshawa. Could Ritchie be in that 3rd line slot with the Avs next year, that 4th line spot? This is a guy I really wanted. And it's no disrespect to Gabe Perreault, and I hope Gabe Perreault is the player he's projected to be. But I do really like what Colorado did, jumping on Colin Ritchie. I really, really do.
Yeah, I like Detroit's draft as well. That first round picks of Nate Danielson and Axel Sandin-Pellikka. I think those are two very strong Steve Yzerman style draft picks. Just smart hockey players. And I think we're going to see over these next few years, maybe this defense for Detroit being very scary over the next few years with the likes of Moritz Seider, Simon Edvinsson, and Axel Sandin-Pellikka being in the fold on that defense. I think that could be a very, very, very nice defense in the coming years. Winnipeg getting Colby Barlow at 18. I had Colby Barlow going as high as 6 or 7. So I think them getting Colby Barlow there is really, really nice for them. Speaking of which, Chicago had a very nice draft, drafting 2 possible cornerstone centers, Connor Bedard, but then don't overlook Oliver Moore.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Oliver Moore was a very, very, very good draft pick as well, with 31 goals and 44 assists in 61 games in his league in USA Developmental. So really, really good job by him as well. There was one other. Oh, Philadelphia's draft. Matvei Michkov, fantastic pick. You probably get the second best player of the draft. And Danny Briere is definitely playing the long game with him. He's not in any rush for him. Matvei Michkov in probably the next 3 years is going to be that Kirill Kaprizov type of person that comes in as a 23-year-old, rookie. And
Artemi Panarin too. Remember Artemi Panarin?
Exactly. And he's just going to rip. I mean, he's going to do a really, really nice job. A couple reasons why he might have dropped in the draft is citing character issues, but hey, he's going to Philadelphia. No one gives a crap about character in Philadelphia.
I beg to differ.
I know, but still. And Philadelphia also drafting Oliver Bonk is a nice move as well. I thought, basically your winners of this draft is anybody that had 2 draft picks. Honestly, anybody that had 2 draft picks. So like St. Louis also wins with Dvorsky and Otto Stenberg. Drafting those 2 as well. San Jose drafting Will Smith and Quentin Musty. How did they end up with Quentin Musty? Like, that is wild to me. Musty really dropped in the draft. 2 of them, 78 points in 53 regular season games with Sudbury in the OHL.
Another guy I was looking at too. I really wanted a Canadian junior guy for the Rangers this year, but it is what it is. A lot of people were saying Perreault was a steal at 23, so I just hope it comes true.
Yeah. And to those Anaheim Ducks fans that are just like, really, we got Leo Carlsson, we're stuck with Leo Carlsson, I'm going to play devil's advocate and say, well, Leo Carlsson is one of the best centers of this draft, like pure centers of this draft. So to that, I say, the last time the Anaheim Ducks drafted a really true blue center was Ryan Getzlaf. There's a lot to be excited with this kid. And I think Leo Carlsson is the absolute perfect pick here for Anaheim. So really nice pick. Tom, I know your screen is blank at the moment. And
I'm back.
There you are. Name one player for me in free agency that you think is going to command either a good dollar amount, or B, really be a player for teams to try to lock up their services.
I'm going to say Vladimir Tarasenko. I mean, he showed, and there's no reason for him to not show it. He showed he can still play this game. He showed he can still score goals. I think that Tarasenko, by fellow Ranger fans, not me, by fellow Ranger fans, is maybe a little bit overhyped. Tarasenko is a goal scorer. He's a good right winger, but let's just face it, guys. Tarasenko has never been a top 5 forward in the league. Now, no disrespect to him. The guy can still play. The guy can still score goals. I'm curious to see where he winds up. Some people are saying Chicago, but I think with Taylor Hall now, I don't think so. Do I think the Rangers are going to try to go back for Tarasenko? Yes, I do. But I just don't know if they're going to be able to agree. And I had mentioned this in previous episodes. Could Tarasenko be an option for the Detroit Red Wings this year? Could he be an option for the Red Wings? And will he want to go there? But could I see Steve Yzerman throwing money at Vladimir Tarasenko? Or could the Edmonton Oilers pull their old dumb tricks and try and sign him instead of actually addressing the needs that they need help with?
Yeah. For me, there are two free agents in my mind. One who's much more higher profile than the other that I think teams are really going to be calling up for. The first one I think is Patrick Kane. And even though he's going to start off the year on LTIR, I think you're still going to have a number of teams that are going to be calling Patrick Kane and inquiring on, a number for that contract. I think the Rangers are going to be the first in line for that one,
I think so. Yeah, I think they're going to prioritize him over Tarasenko just for the cap, just because of the cap hit.
Yeah.
He's going to have a lower cap hit.
I wouldn't completely say it's not possible for him to go back to Chicago, but I think that's an uphill battle from there. I don't know if I see it.
He's not going back there.
Yeah, I think the ship has sailed. I think he said too much. I think he imploded the bridge on the way out.
It's my theory is this, with Bedard being there now, I think, and Taves being told that he wouldn't be back, I think they're trying to just cut the cord from those old championship winning teams and start anew in Chicago.
Exactly.
The worst thing
I think it's the right move
is try to hold on to the glory days, kind of what the Los Angeles Kings are doing right now.
Yeah. But then the other name for me that I think is going to be on high watch and high alert, which is going to stress Tampa Bay fans out, Alex Killorn. I think Alex Killorn is probably the biggest name to watch because I think he's a real game changer for any team that decides to sign him. I don't know if I could project any team that could be near the front to really sign him, but maybe one team to maybe keep an eye on if they decide to let Tarasenko walk, if they decide to let Kane walk, maybe the Rangers could swoop in and maybe try to make a deal for Alex Killorn, honestly.
Here's the problem with that. I can't, that's just, it doesn't make sense to me when you potentially, I know Brendan Othman's a left wing, but when you have a guy like Brendan Othman coming in who could play a similar game and it's going to be on an ELC, Killorn doesn't make sense as opposed to a guy like Tarasenko or a guy like Patrick Kane.
Yeah.
There's another guy who was there last year who I'm going to bring up in a little bit is why I don't think Killorn would be an option either.
Fair enough. And I do agree there, but it's tough for me to project where Killorn could go, honestly. I think it's really tough for me to project.
Could he go home to Montreal, maybe? I don't know.
That could be a possible landing spot, but they might need to clear a little bit of cap. I know they're still trying to clear Josh Anderson, and every Montreal fan on Twitter is trying to like will Josh Anderson to the Devils for whatever reason, and please God no. But yeah, Montreal could be a potential landing spot and could make a lot of sense. Could also make a lot of sense for him to stay in Tampa Bay if he takes a discount also, which is also not out of the realm of possibility as well. So who knows what happens? All I know is it's time to wrap things up here. Time to wrap things up with our question of the day. And our question of the day is this. Who do you think moves before free agency opens up? Tom, who is a player in your mind that could be on the move before free agency opens up on July 1st?
Well, this is why I was not thinking the Killorn deal would be realistic. And that is because the Rangers, I think, are going to move Barclay Goodrow. I don't have a problem with Goodrow. I really don't. I like him. He's a good player. I don't like the deal. They gave him a 6-year deal, which he's 2 years into now. It's going to expire when he's 34 years old. Goodrow's a bottom 6 sandpaper guy, a guy you need to win. I understand all of that. We were talking about the Detroit Red Wings and Steve Yzerman before. For all those cups that they won and the guys like Yzerman and Shanahan and Fedorov and Lynch and Lidstrom, how important they were. You look down the roster at guys like Draper and Maltby and Doug Brown and Marty LaPointe, and they were just as equally as important. Thomas Holmstrom, equally as important. I understand that. In today's league, guys like that, yeah, they're important, but you need them on the right side of 30. If you're paying somebody on the wrong side of 30 that much money to play in your third and fourth line, you got a problem. And I think that they're going to have to let Goodrow go, A, because they're going to need to pay Lafreniere and Miller, number one. Number two, like I said, they're going to try to will one of Tarasenko and Kane back. My money thinks it's going to be Kane because of the lower cap hit. And on top of all that, you can LTIR Kane until probably sometime in March and then bring him back. And I think that just might be easy for the cap situation. The Rangers are not going to do what they did last year where you play games short because of cap compliance. I think that ship has sailed. They're not going to do that again. They learned their lesson. But at the same time, much as I like Goodrow, much as I like what he brings to the table, he's just not worth what the cap hit is anymore.
Yeah. For me, I think a few days ago, I would have said maybe Connor Hellebuck or Mark Scheifele for the Winnipeg Jets. And I still think that those are two players that maybe one or both of them are going to find their way out of town. But I guess my question is, with Tampa Bay moving out Ross Colton and Corey Perry subsequently as well, but he was on an expiring contract, have they done enough to try to keep Alex Killorn by any means necessary? Could we possibly see maybe one other contract of theirs possibly be moved out before July 1st at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time before free agency opens up? It's going to be left to be seen. I don't know if I see Connor Hellebuck or Mark Scheifele moving before July 1st. I think that they are two guys that teams are going to maybe see how free agency pans out the first few days before kicking the tires on Mark Scheifele or Connor Hellebuck. Obviously, Hellebuck's been linked with the New Jersey Devils, but Tom Fitzgerald has pretty much said he likes Connor Hellebuck, but not for the price right now. So that's going to be something that we stay tuned on for now. But until then, guys, it's time to move away here. It's time to watch as free agency develops, and we'll be back here next week to talk about different landing spots for these players for free agency. So until then, thank you guys for watching. And if you want to watch some more of our videos, make sure you check out our videos down below, youtube.com/i80sports. Join the conversation down below. Let us know what you guys think of all of what we talked about today, our coaching changes, the trades, the contract extensions, our draft reflection, and the free agency preview. Let us know down below. What do you think of our opinions? And if you just want to drop down and say hi, say hi. We might even say hi back. And make sure that you also subscribe and hit the bell notification so that way you guys know when we post, and we post regularly at least once a week. And if you're on Twitter, make sure that you follow us on Twitter at I80_Sports NHL. And if you guys are following already, thank you guys so much for all of your support, because we greatly appreciate all of your support. But time to move away here. Time to see how free agency opens up, and it's going to be a frenzy. Join us for the frenzy next week. But until then, I'm Brian. He's Tom. This has been yet another episode of NHL on I80 Sports.